Hello and welcome to my review of Hyper Light Drifter. I will go over the basics of the game, explaining what it's all about so that you can get a sense of whether or not you may enjoy playing it. I will also keep this review as spoiler free as possible, so I will only show parts of one area of the game that I consider the first one, along with some of the intro sequence of the game. Hyper Light Drifter is an action-adventure that is centered around a mix of combat and exploration. Combat is a mix between melee and range, but heavily emphasizes melee, as you have limited ammo or energy for your guns that will only recharge if you hit with your melee attacks. Your main defense option is a quick dodge and health packs for those times you get hit and need to regain some health. There are no parries or abilities that would interrupt the enemy's attacks, so the way to master combat is learning enemy tells for attacks and evading them in a way that allows you to hit them back while they're in a state of recovery. Once you're familiar with enemy attack patterns and how much health they have, it is also possible to be more aggressive and take them out just before they get a hit on you in the first place. This requires more precise timing on the player's part, but feels all the more satisfying when you can pull it off consistently. The game can be quite difficult at first since you don't have a high health pool, and using health packs doesn't happen instantly and you cannot pause the game to heal. So if you need to regain health, you first have to find a time during the fight that allows you to heal without getting hit again, which is very reminiscent of the Dark Souls franchise for those of you who are familiar with that. There are also upgrades in the game, and with upgrades I don't mean stats upgrades where the same move deals more damage, but upgrades in the sense that you can buy new types of moves altogether. Though some do deal more damage, they all have their unique mechanics tied to them, like an area of effect attack that you need to charge up first, or an attack where you deal damage while also dodging in one direction. There are also defensive upgrades, like additional consecutive dodges, or the ability to hit bullets and reflect them back to the attacker, which also works very well for starting attacks on enemies and bosses, and feels very satisfying when you can pull it off. Exploration can net you various types of things, but most of the time those will either be upgrade materials or health packs. There are also secret type of stuff that I don't want to spoil here. Suffice to say for now there's lots to discover, and exploration is almost always rewarded. There's also the aspect of how things are hidden in the world. From them simply being open but off the beaten path to being behind breakable objects or even behind what I would call false walls. The latter being the most interesting mechanic, which dates back to the very early games of this type. The idea is that since you're watching the world from top-down perspective, you won't really know if something is a wall or if it's a corridor with a roof on top. And while it sounds terribly random to discover, they designed it incredibly fairly, since all such corridors have their tells that you can see and figure out without needing to try and walk into every wall you'll find along your way. I won't go into much more detail here since I want to keep these reviews as spoiler-free as possible, but I will say that I found it an enjoyable aspect of the game, even though I usually don't like exploring that much in games in general. In order to get around more quickly in the world of Hyper Light Drifter, there are one-way teleports that you can unlock and that are located in about the center of each area. It works pretty straightforward. At any point and from any point you can just open your map and teleport yourself to one of those teleport platforms. This will take about 5 seconds to charge up, so you can't use it to escape a battle, but it lets you comfortably travel around areas you've already visited without much walking or dashing around through places you've already been. There's a nice variety to the enemies you'll be fighting throughout the game. Even though there are 2 or 3 very basic types that will appear in all of the different areas, most enemies are specific to their section of the game and are unique in how they attack. While certain sections of the fights are rather challenging, the game is very fair in how it introduces new types of enemies. You'll always find some isolated enemies first whenever the game introduces you to a new type of enemy. That way you get to see its movesets and attack patterns first, and you have a chance to learn how to defeat it before the game throws a whole group of them at you and combines it with other enemies. The game saves automatically and frequently. Usually that happens when you enter a room or when you teleport. When you die, the game automatically loads your last save, which is usually just before the battle started. You'll have the same amount of healing items that you had at the checkpoint, so you can try again immediately and don't need to restock if you used up most of your healing kits during the battle before. I think this is a great decision from a gameplay perspective. Even though it makes death not that eventful, it also means that the battles themselves will be more action-packed and difficult as a result, since there's no real punishment for dying. This means that encounters are always interesting and challenging enough to not be trivial for the most part. There's no filler content that's just there for the sake of draining some resources from the player and make them go over long sections to master them before being able to progress. If you're stuck at a tough battle, you can try it over and over until you succeed, being able to try new tactics and strategies immediately after the last attempt proved fatal. While fighting through a level is a lot of fun, the bosses are definitely the highlight when it comes to fighting challenges. Each one has a large health pool and will get more and more difficult as you decrease its health bar. They have several moves and patterns they cycle through which will generally stay the same throughout the fight, However, each move or pattern has 2 more amped up versions that they will use once their health bar goes below a certain threshold. This means that while you more or less know what kind of move to expect and thus have some experience dodging it, it'll still get more difficult, thus making the battle more interesting and intense over time. The bosses themselves are very different from each other, both in terms of style and in terms of how they fight you. But again, for the sake of this review being spoiler free, I don't want to go into more details here. The game manages to create an intriguing atmosphere right from the start. This is due to both the visual and audio design. The background sounds are not intruding, but make a good baseline to how an area should feel. The graphics themselves are gorgeous pixel art. The world is full of little details that give you a sense of the area and its history, including some large landmarks that often look really cool and make you wonder what exactly happened there. All in all, going to new areas and exploring is a great pleasure. There's no boring filler areas that are just there to tie the different important locations together, but each area has some engaging content. Either by being purely cosmetic in terms of something that's there to tell a non-verbal story, or enemy groups to fight or traps to avoid, and sometimes even 2 or 3 of these in one location. All in all, if you enjoy a bit of difficulty in combat and you like 2B pixel art games, I can fully recommend this game to you. There's enough content there for at least 30 hours of playing if you include getting all the collectibles and secrets, or doing another playthrough on hard difficulty. Even without that, it's a game that can be fun to go back to every now and then, since the combat is still going to be engaging and challenging, and there's not much downtime between the action. Plus, there's the sense of mastery you get once you're through the game and learned how to deal with various attacks and enemies better, so that when you come back, you'll be able to get through previously very difficult sections with ease, which is very satisfying. So, that was it for the review part. I will leave about a minute of pure gameplay footage without me talking over it to end this review with, so you can get a sense of how the game plays with the sound on and without distraction. If you liked or disliked the video, feel free to let me know in the comments or leave a thumbs up or down. Either way, thank you for watching, and I hope you'll check out my future videos if you found this one helpful or interesting. Till then, have a nice day and take care.